Alrighty, fellas, let's talk about the 500,000 mile truck, right? This is my how to keep your truck rolling over $500,000 series. This is the 100,000 mile interval, what we do and what's worked for us. We got a lot of trucks to prove it, and obviously it works for us. Doesn't mean it'll work for you, but that's the point of this channel, is to share my experience. So here we go. 100,000 miles. Well, I'm gonna break this in two series, once a year or 100,000 miles. In our case, 100,000 miles. That's my story. Front differential, because of condensation, it contaminates your oil. That's why when you pull that lid, there's a lot of white oil coming out. White, right? When you see white in oil, that's water. So once a year or every 100,000 miles, do your front differential. We barely use ours, right? They get engaged once in a while, the 4x4 system. So I mean, there's not much use, and there's not much of actual wear and tear on the oil and the gears, but given the time, we replace that. And then your transfer case. As long as your transfer case does not have the auto setting feature, all my experience of these high mileage trucks, personal experience, is with Ram products. And they don't have the auto setting and the heavy duty. So the 4th, 5th gen trucks, right? But if you happen to have something like a half ton, this is Cadillac, but a GM product. They have the auto setting. I think their GM's new trucks have auto settings too, but the auto setting is more for the 1500. So if you have a 1500 Ram, you have a 1500 Ford, or half ton Chevy series, do your transfer cases with your transmissions, because there's clutches in that auto setting. Highly preferable. I would watch that like a hawk. I could see your transfer case fluid wearing out a lot quicker than your transmission. So that's very careful. That's a big no-no. Now, every 100,000 miles series, second part to this, is your pins for your calipers, guys. Super important. It will save you tons of money, and it will save your life on the road. It doesn't take much for those things to start jamming up, and you're really not going to notice until they really jam up, right? So once a year, guys, pull the boots pins out that the calipers right on, clean them out, brush them out, wipe them out, put fresh grease, fresh pin in a new boot. Simple, really simple job, and it saves you thousands of dollars and possibly your life down the road. Now, under the hood at 100,000 miles, there's 3 things. Pull the lower radiator hose. So you flush 4 things. So you flush your coolant. Replace your coolant, guys. These trucks don't have head gaskets like people like to make of them. People create the head gasket issues from corrosion and all that. So do your fluid every 100,000 while you're doing your water pump, right? You yank the water pump, well, more like you yank the hose, drain your coolant, yank the water pump. That's the right way to do it. A lot of people just yank the water pump and replace it because it's such an easy job. It's up top. Drain all that crap out, guys. Put new fluid once you're all done with your job in your water pump every 100,000. 100,000, 100,000. Fluid and water pump. Next, your radiators. Do you see, right? These radiator got cleaned. It's all covered up from underneath, but these radiators get cleaned often. And this one has been cleaned the last 30,000 miles. And you can see, I mean, a little bit here and there, it's already getting jam-packed. So every year, springtime, hose them off. Take the plastic piece off, just get water in there all you can. Mine got so bad one time, this little trick I used, it's gonna make a mess, but it'll do the trick for you. Before you disassemble anything, I hosed it down. It was so bad. Knocked off what I could. I did take the grill off, and I just hosed it with like Purple Power or something. Just let it soak in for a couple minutes. Got in the truck, turned on the AC so it kicks on the fan, and just started dumping water as much as I can. This is not ideal, but if your radiator is that bad, you're gonna have to do that. It did the trick for me on this truck. The condenser was kind of getting plugged. I didn't want to, unhook the AC system, and it's a whole process. So that's how I was able to keep my AC filled and clean it off. Typically, what you want to do is take the cover off and go between the radiators with a soft brush, not a wire brush, but a long handle soft brush, and knock off all that. You're gonna come across a lot of feather-like stuff or cotton field, really light materials in there. You have no idea where you picked them up. Neither do I or none of my drivers, but it's packed in there. So clean it up, let your radiator flow. Next thing you want to do is circulate your power steering fluid. So there's going to be two hoses. There's a hose on the bottom of the reservoir that goes to the pump, and then there's one that comes up and dumps to refill. Take the one that refills, right, and put it in a separate container. While you have someone behind the ignition, right, helping you start and stop, keep filling your reservoir and watch the return line. As soon as it starts coming back clean, it does the trick. Typically, it's just a quart and a half, really. That's what we end up using, about a quart and a half. Because my guys, you know, drain the bad fluid out, put fresh fluid in it, hijack the return line so it doesn't come back into the container. They put it in another one, and they just dump oil as the truck's running, and it just circulates it. Pretty simple. As soon as you start seeing the oil lighten up, you tell the guy to shut off the truck, and you're done with that. I never had to replace power steering pumps on my personal rigs. From all my experience, you know, having north of 30 of these units, right? Never had to do that. Now, I think I've had probably 25 4th gens, but I had plenty of these 4th gens. We're slowly selling them off, but anyways, I've never had to do a power steering, never had to do a gearbox. Yes, 700,000. Never power steering, never gearbox. Maintenance is key, guys. What do we use? ATF plus 4. That's the power steering fluid we use, and it does the trick just fine. Gets the contaminants out once a year, and you're good to go. A guy that does really low mileage, I would probably let that fluid sit in there for probably up to 5 years, just like I would let the coolant, and I would let the brake system up to that, right? Brake system, because we circulate a lot of heat cycles, it seems to be just fine every 300,000 when we do calipers, but I'm jumping in another video. We'll talk about it another time. But I just said radiator fluid, right? If you're the guy, cool. If you're the guy that doesn't do much miles, still at 5 years, if you haven't done 100,000, drain that stuff. Drain your fluids. It's super important. Anyways, as always, may the Lord bless you, and may you all have a mighty fine day. Ciao. Bye.